Hi everybody, so there are three ways you get warm: convection, conduction and radiation. Radiation is what it sounds like, and it's the reason why it's colder in the shadows than it is in the direct sun. You notice this most on a winter's day. Step into the sunlight, you'll feel warm. Step into a shadow, you'll feel freezing, because you're cut off from the radiation of the sun. Conduction is what you find when you heat one end of a pipe and the other gets hot. It conducts along a metal pipe. Convection is what we use to heat houses. It's where you heat up the air sets up a current and it convects along carrying the heat. It's the same thing that happens on that day we just mentioned. The air of the earth gets warmed and travels around with convection. When you step into the shadows, you're getting the convection heat, not the radiation heat. When you step into the sunlight, you're getting convection and radiation, which is why it's so much warmer. Now, we use convection heating a lot, and it is singularly the worst kind of heating. It's the worst kind of heating because it relies on air currents, and as everybody knows, air warmed is lighter than cold air, so it travels up to the top of your house. So you're sitting in a house which an average room size about 2.4 to 2.8 metres, and you're sitting in the round about 1.2 metres. So all that air up there has got to get warm before it comes down and you start to feel it. So you pay a fortune for warming empty air that you're not actually using. It's why underfloor heating got so popular, because underfloor heating heats that section from the bottom, the bit that you're travelling in, and so you feel warmer, more comfortable, and it turns out to be a bit cheaper too. So in video 1680 we discovered that this stuff worked incredibly well as a wick. Now what this is carbon felt. It's 100% pure carbon, there's no plastics mixed in there, and it's a felt, so the fibres in it are actually quite close together. I say this because it matters. Wicks have all very similar properties. Now this is a normal cotton wick you find in your average heater or lamp, and it's just woven cotton. Now because it's woven quite tightly, all those fibres are close together, create little galleries, and it can wick the material up there. The only problem being is it burns. This is Kevlar wick. You could also use fiberglass incidentally, and probably carbon fibre. Same thing, it's closely woven to create a lot of little fibres so that it can wick between the channels of those fibres. This being Kevlar means it doesn't burn, but is relatively expensive. This stuff being carbon, it will burn, but only at 400 degrees centigrade plus. And given that what's happening is the fuel is evaporating, it keeps the wick relatively cool while the flame is a bit hotter, so it lasts for absolutely ages, if not forever. But you have to have those qualities in it. If you're using granules or you're using a foam, it's not going to work. If you're using a carbon that's got plastic in it, the plastic is going to melt and it's not going to work. You need a material where you have a quite close between the fibres, between the structure, so it can wick. Now we found that this wicked really, really well with lighter oils, and wood burned vegetable oil, but it depended in lamps on what the condition it was in, because we stuffed it in a copper fitting. Now my theory is that the burning here heats the copper, and then we get heat by conduction going through the copper, and it hits the oil. It then melts the oil a little bit more, making it a little more liquid, and then it wicks up and continues burning. So that's what I thought was happening. Not 100% sure, but it's certainly what I thought was happening with this. Anyway, what we did, roll some of that up, stuff it in a bit of carbon, and stick it in a petri dish with some vegetable oil. Now after leaving it for a little bit, you will feel that the oil has been wicked up. The cloth is very oily and we can light it like we light a candle. Two ways to get it going. One is to turn a blowtorch or a windproof lighter on it, and the other is pop a bit of alcohol on the top and then burn the alcohol. The alcohol will burn and heat the whole thing up, and that will begin the process. So the very next thing that we did with this is we put a plant pot on it to make a plant pot heater. I didn't realise at the time how controversial a subject plant pot heaters were, with half a camp swearing blind that they work brilliantly and the other half of the camp swearing blind about what hogwash it is. To be honest, I think it depends on your view. There is no way, with the best will in the world, that that little flame is going to heat a room by convection. So in those ways, of course, they're perfectly right. You can't heat a room with the convection heat from a candle flame. It's ridiculous. But the argument is that the plant pot gets hot and radiates heat. Just like a hot lamp, a radiant heater. A radiant heater doesn't heat the air. It hits you, or anything that can absorb the radiant heat, and warms you up without mucking around with the tedious air in between. And so radiant heaters, you get warm and feel warmer much quicker as long as you're standing by the radiant heater or in the path of the radiant heater beam. A radiant heater will not heat up a room. Only convection heaters will do that. So from that side of stuff, what they're saying is perfectly true. And of course, once you've got a soapbox, you're going to stand on it, aren't you? The other side of it is that this doesn't heat you. It heats the plant pot, and then the plant pot radiates the heat. So from that side of the fence, those guys are probably perfectly right. And because they're two guys who are probably perfectly right with completely opposing ideas, of course it's a never-ending argument. However, I have seen experiments of people with a plant pot heater demonstrating the overall increase in a closed room, and I thought it was quite impressive. But it did make me think about that idea of radiating the heat, because a ceramic, it takes a while. It is a mass, but it takes a while, it'll radiate for a while, but it's not particularly efficient. And then I came across this. It's a saucepan! A stainless steel saucepan. So we put a brick there, and our stainless steel saucepan over the flame. Now the idea is, this pan will get hot. It'll get hot and then it will radiate the heat out, and as long as you're in the path of that radiation, you're going to get warm. Okay, that's had about 5 minutes and you can see it's already at 53 degrees centigrade, and the ambient in here is 17 incidentally. If I put my hands off that, I can feel it radiating the heat. So it certainly will warm up that pan, and that pan will certainly radiate. Now, whenever I come across an argument like this, where there's two people saying one thing or the other, you've just got to try it for yourself, and that's the only way you're going to be able to make a determination about it. But clearly, it's a piece of cake to give it a go, so why not? If you've got an old pan, just stick them on a couple of bricks and see how it works for you. Word of warning, courtesy of our woke generation, remember it does give off carbon monoxide, so if you're going to do this, make sure you've got a carbon monoxide alarm or good ventilation, one or the other. But that certainly seems to be warming up rather nicely, and of course the advantage of the Forever Wick, not only it lasts a long time, you can put it in a pool of oil rather than having a single candle, and that oil can be a whole load of things, including, I would think, waste oil. The waste oil you can buy for like 5 or 10 pence a litre. So, for me it works. Love this improvement using the pot. If you want to know if it really works, test it yourself. It's going to be the only way you're going to get an answer. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and please do remember to like and subscribe. Quick add-on, 10 minutes after that, 77, 78 degrees. That's actually quite astonishing.